The nights we never slept still burn quietly behind my eyes, like lanterns in a fog that never cleared. We lay in the hush of things. Unsaid, our hearts speaking in pulses and skin, fingers exploring the borders where dreams met breath. Time didn't matter in those hours. It curled itself around us, reluctant to pass, as if even it were drunk on the way you looked at me. You touched me as if I were fragile but fierce, like something wild that might vanish. Every word you whispered settled deeper than the marrow, echoing with the ache of something that had waited lifetimes to be spoken. The ceiling above us bore witness, painted with shadows of promises and the rhythm of a closeness that defied language. My eyes searched yours for answers I didn't need. You were the answer. And in those endless moments, we weren't sleeping because sleep would have stolen from us the one thing we feared losing: time. Time with each other. Time wrapped in breathless awe. Time stitched in the silence where two souls dared to fully meet. There's a tenderness to memory when it tiptoes back in the middle of a dull afternoon, catching me unaware with the scent of your skin or the echo of your laugh. I turn, half expecting to find you there, sprawled across the past, like a line I still want to read aloud. But it's only the wind teasing the curtain, mimicking the way your hand used to brush my cheek, as if wiping away time itself. We made homes out of borrowed hours and shelters from skin on skin, as though our bodies knew something our minds couldn't quite confess. I remember how your voice would dip at midnight, low and reverent, as if you were speaking to the stars themselves. You always said I looked like a prayer when I slept, but I never really did, not with you there beside me. I was awake in the wonder of you, in the gravity of your gaze, and the quiet blaze of what we were building. We existed between blinks, between clock ticks. Love was not a lullaby. It was a war cry, gentle and consuming. Some nights I still lie awake, not in longing, but in remembrance. Each breath laced with the embers of what we refused to extinguish. The world outside carried on, oblivious to the hush inside that room, where only moonlight dared to intrude. We were architects of a silence too sacred for sleep, building something more lasting than rest. It wasn't insomnia, it was worship. Your hand would search for mine like it had forgotten the shape of solitude, curling around my fingers as though anchoring yourself to the only truth that made sense. And I let you, again and again, I let you. The softness of your voice could fold even the sharpest grief into something almost beautiful. You said I made the dark feel less like an ending and more like a beginning. And I believed you, not because I wanted to, but because I could feel it in the marrow of the night, in the gravity of us, in the collision of stairs that held 100 lifetimes. We were not merely lovers, we were rebels against forgetfulness. There's a strange intimacy in staying awake with someone, past the point where words matter. You learn their breath patterns, the rhythm of their heart when it isn't guarded. You learn which silences are sacred and which ones beg to be filled with soft laughter or the sound of old secrets being unwrapped, like delicate gifts. I knew the language of your eyelashes against your cheek, the apology in your pauses, the way your body curved toward mine like gravity was personal. And I think in those hours we stole from sleep, we discovered a truth that few are ever brave enough to claim. Love isn't loud. It's in the stillness, the waiting, the choosing again and again in the hush between sunrises. We weren't restless, we were reverent. It wasn't desire that kept us awake, it was devotion. A quiet, wild devotion that had no blueprint, no destination. Only the certainty that whatever this was, it was more than just love. It was remembering each other before we had even met. It was belonging before we had even spoken. I remember how you trace constellations on my shoulder with your fingertip, mapping your dreams on my skin like I was your galaxy. And I let you, silent and still, pretending not to notice, because pretending made it last longer. There was something sacred in the pretense, in not speaking what we already knew. You'd kiss my wrist, as if it held the secrets of time. And maybe it did. We bent the night around us, turning seconds into oceans, minutes into minutes. You once said the night was kinder than the day, because it never asked questions. And maybe that's why we thrived there under cover of moonlight, cloaked in vulnerability, naked, in more than just skin. We whispered things we wouldn't have dared say in the daylight, and those whispers were louder than any scream. If sleep is for the weary, then love must be for the restless. We were not tired. We were alive in every sense of the word, wide-eyed in the darkness, breathing dreams into existence with every touch, every heartbeat, every promise too tender to be spoken aloud. Somewhere between dusk and dawn, I stopped fearing the morning. You made me love, beginning. The way you looked at me, even in the absence of words, told me I was seen, truly seen, not as a story unfinished or a puzzle incomplete, but as something whole, something enough. You didn't fix me. You didn't try. You just held space for the girl who had always been told she was too much, or not enough. You held her without shrinking, and that, God, that was everything. We shared dreams we hadn't even dared admit to ourselves, suspended in the vulnerable cocoon of night, our truths undressed and safe. You taught me that love doesn't need grandeur. It needs honesty. It needs presence. It needs someone willing to stay awake when the world sleeps, to listen to the softest part of your soul and not run from it. You didn't run. You stayed. In every unspoken vow and every stolen hour, you stayed. And in that staying, you carved a home in me that no distance could dismantle. I think that's what love is. Choosing someone in the quiet, not just when everything is poetic, but when the stillness stretches like a canyon, daring you to leap into the unknown. We leapt every single night, and every time I fell into you, not because I was weak, but because you caught me in a way that made falling feel like flying. Your laughter would sometimes break the silence, warm and unguarded, and I'd smile because I knew it was mine. That moment, that sound, that piece of you that felt too fragile for the world, but safe enough with me. It was a privilege. I never took it for granted. We didn't make love like others did. We wrote symphonies with our fingertips and read each other like scripture. We didn't sleep because there was too much living to do inside those hours. Every heartbeat was a declaration. Every sigh was a story. And I memorized all of you, not just the shape of your body, but the map of your soul. I loved you in real time. The world felt distant in those hours, like we were floating just above the noise of it. You'd hold me like gravity had no claim, like the only law that mattered was the closeness of skin and the truth in our eyes. I never knew I could feel so safe and so vulnerable all at once. That's what you did. You disarmed me without ever raising a hand. You saw through the performance, past the poise, into the storm beneath, and instead of flinching, you stepped in. We were thunder and shelter, rain and fire, and still, we never slept. There was always one more story to tell, one more memory to make, one more look to steal before morning stole you away. We existed in that sacred pause between yesterday and tomorrow, where only love dares to linger, and it lingered. It still does. In echoes, in memories, in the way I still turn toward the place where you once breathed beside me. The nights we never slept became the life I remember most vividly. Even now I close my eyes and feel your breath against my collarbone, like a lullaby made of heat and hope. I remember the weight of your arm across my waist, heavy with comfort, grounding me. We didn't need grand gestures. We had gestures that whispered instead of shouted, glances, sighs, the brush of your thumb against my knuckles. Those were the declarations. Those were the vows. We existed in a world of our own, a world where words bowed to the language of closeness, where silence was never empty, but filled with the gravity of knowing. You once told me the moon envied us, and maybe she did, because she watched us bloom in darkness, unashamed, untamed. We were the love stories that songs try to capture, but always fall short. Not because we were perfect, but because we were real, messy, sacred, unforgettable. And in that honesty, we found forever. Not a forever measured in years, but in nights. The nights we never slept. The nights we lived fully. The nights I still hold inside me, like constellations, made just for us. Sometimes I wonder if you remember too, if in the quiet moments, your mind drifts back to the night your laughter danced across my lips, or when our foreheads pressed together, eyes closed, sharing breath, like it was enough. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe you've found new nights, new skin,
new truths. But somewhere in you, I hope there's a room I still live in, even if the lights are dimmed, even if the bed's been remade. I hope my name still lingers on your pillow. I'm not asking for forever anymore. I'm just asking for the truth of those moments to remain real. Because they were. We weren't a mistake. We were a masterpiece born in the hours most people waste in sleep. We chose to live. We chose to feel everything. And that matters. It always will. I carry you in the pauses, in the breath between lines of poetry, in the hush after the credits roll. We were never meant to last forever. We were meant to echo. So I speak your name into the dark sometimes, not out of longing, but gratitude for every sleepless night, for every sacred moment you gave me, for the way you showed me that love doesn't need an audience to be epic. It only needs two people, brave enough to stay awake through it all. We were brave, and though the nights no longer belong to us, though time has wrapped its arms around you and pulled you into some other story, I remain here, a page you once wrote upon, and I read it back when the stars are too loud and the ache too quiet. I let the memories wash over me, like tide over stone, not to relive them, but to remind myself that I was once loved. That deeply, that honestly, that completely. The nights we never slept are carved into my soul, a soft anthem I hum when the world forgets the poetry we made. You were my midnight sun, my sleepless hymn, and I will always, always love the nights we never slept.